Orange Pulp with Zach Francis, Ellen Burr, Tim Ferguson's in New Hampshire. We're expecting to have him call in today. We're going to have a lot of action talking women's basketball, ACC as a whole, Johnny Manziel. Today is the day before Super Bowl Sunday, but we're going to
Super Bowl 50, baby!
But we're going to jump right into it with SU men's basketball. They took out Virginia Tech 68-68 overtime. Ellen, you were covering the game. What did you see?
A really messy game from both the Orange and the Hokies. Syracuse is one of the worst games I've seen from them this season, except for the last 5 minutes. They didn't lead it at all in regulation. It's a straight-up miracle that they pulled out a win.
You said straight-up miracle. Malachi Richardson, Cooney, Benajay all shooting insane from the outside at the end of the game.
Cooney and Malachi couldn't shoot for their lives in the first half. Even a little bit in the second half. I know Malachi ended up with 13 points, but he was not the usual offensive threat that he is for the Orange. But Benajay really rescued the guys in that game.
Zach, what do you take away from this being the fact that, okay, as badly as they played, they somehow, where they haven't been able to close out a game, this was a good last 5 minutes and overtime.
You know, it's one of those things that that teams need to find at some point during the season. They have to figure out how to win the game. When really, like in this case, they'd never had much of a chance. It showed a lot of maturity from a rather young team. And, it's really good to see this from this squad because, they're not that supremely talented like Syracuse has been in the past. But the maturity aspect from them and figuring out how to win a game that really they shouldn't have had much of a problem with. But it goes back to Syracuse always playing up or, in this case, down to the level of an opponent, which eventually that will hurt them.
We'll touch on in a little bit playing to their level of competition, but I want to touch on one thing real quick. Last year it felt like Cooney was the only one who could shoot, and as the season went on, his legs just died and he couldn't shoot that well. This year, with Richardson, with Benajay stepping up, does it just free up Cooney to shoot and be able to have more comfortableness? And you can see three different people shoot the ball like you did at the end of that second half and into overtime. Okay, we're more comfortable with that as fans and as players.
Comfortable with the three-point shooting?
With the three-point shooting between just more than Cooney.
I mean, Cooney's so hot and cold this season. I think he has these stellar games like he did against UNC and Notre Dame, but then there's those nights where he's not hitting anything at all. I think if you're going to identify yourself as a three-point shooting team, you need to have multiple three-point shooting threats. That being said, Cooney's not getting easy shots. Every time he has the ball, they're suffocating him well beyond the perimeter, whoever's guarding him. We see the same thing from with Benajay as well because he's been such an offensive threat. And I think people are starting to guard Malachi a little tighter on the outside, but with that, he's so incredible at slashing the lane and beating them with that quick jab step. He has the quickest little juke I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, Ellen, we were talking about that the other day. He's just got like this little jab that it throws the defender off every time.
Breaking ankles.
Yeah.
Put him on ice skates. That I think he's more of a multiple threat player, if that makes sense. Where Cooney, when he's not shooting threes, he's not scoring. He's not scoring. So, yeah, I think back to your original question, the three-point shooting from all three of those guys is vital to this team.
Who is the go-to guy then?
That's tough. I think we've been quick to say Benajay, but Malachi's been doing really well offensively. Emphasis on the offensively part because he's not super great on defense, so we've been over that. So I think Malachi can get it done late in the game, even when he's playing poorly. I think Benajay is the most consistent. So, that's a tough question. What do you guys think?
I think that you have to look at it in that Virginia Tech game. Who took the last shot in regulation?
Oh, Benajay. Yeah.
It was Richardson that took the last shot.
The
last shot in regulation that
the last
clanked off.
Benajay. Yeah.
the last shot was Benajay, but in regulation it was Richardson. I think that was them saying, you know what, we want you to be the go-to scorer. We want you to show that you have that offensive threat that is going to take all of the defensive pressure off of Benajay, off of Cooney. Mm-hmm. And so that's them saying, we trust you to make this.
Right, but it was interesting in the press conference, Boeheim talked about how he drew up one of those last plays in overtime for Cooney to make the three, which he did. But it was just shocking because he hadn't really made anything before that.
Was that like really ridiculously deep three from the top of the key? Yeah.
So they drew up that play for Cooney as if he was the go-to guy for the game, which was just shocking. I mean, you never want to question Coach Boeheim, but
I question it a lot of what he does, though.
Right there with you.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, so in that instance, Cooney was the go-to guy. I think all of our guards are so dangerous from the perimeter. I think we have multiple scoring threats there, which is good for Syracuse because we've gotten nothing inside.
You know, I would even go so far as to make the argument that there is no one go-to guy.
Yeah, I mean,
because it sort of depends on who's hot that night. It could be Cooney. If they're playing a tough team, he seems to get hot at the right time against them. Could be Richardson because he can really turn it on in the second half like he did against Georgia Tech, against Virginia Tech.
He needs to be more consistent through the first half, right from the start, though.
Yeah, apparently he really likes the technical institutes. But and then, you know, you've always got that consistent threat of Benajay, who has really turned into much more of a point guard. I know that we've talked about his transition from small forward, which there is no small forward in the college game, so that really throws me off when people say that. But his transition from really a front court player to a back court player. And I really like that he has become that distributor, the point guard that this team needed.
Yeah. You're listening to Orange Pulp. We're talking SU men's basketball with Zach Francis, Ellen Burr. I'm Brian. Continue.
With that, though, I think when you have a Frank Howard in the game, a true point guard, you really do see the passes that Benajay might be overlooking.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So I think, he has made that transition to the point guard position, but as far as assists go, he should be having a lot more. He doesn't have the best court vision as a point guard.
There's no question. If he makes it in the NBA, he's not going to be a point guard.
Oh, hands down, he is not going to be a point guard.
It's good to have that bigger player that can handle the ball, but he might actually play the small forward in the league. He might transition more to a two guard there, just because bigger, he can shoot the rock. I could see him being one of those players that sort of floats around and can play about anywhere.
Bit of a renaissance man.
Yeah.
We touched on it a little bit, and diving more into it now, Syracuse seems to play to their competition more than just about any team I've seen ever, and they blow out Notre Dame. I know they were without one of their star players, but they barely beat Georgia Tech. They needed to go to the well and have nearly a miracle to beat Virginia Tech. Yes, they've won their 3 straight and 6 of their last 7, but can you keep going just playing to, okay, we can ratchet up to an 8 tonight. Oh, we only need to ratchet up to a 4.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest problem with this team. You could say their lack of front court depth because they have none. But you have to go out there and give a consistent effort every night because eventually one of those teams that you're not turning it up against, they're going to come back, bite you in the ass, take you out, and then when they look at that NCAA tournament resume, they're going to say, oh, that was an awful loss, and then that could keep them out of the tournament.
Going back to the having no front court, we can all agree on that, but one of the most frustrating things for me this season is that play where they send Daewon or Roberson, Leiden up to the top of the key to set a screen for Cooney or Benajay, even Malachi sometimes, and then they roll, and especially when it's Daewon setting a screen on Benajay, Daewon's defender and Benajay's defender are doubling Benajay. Daewon's rolling down into the paint. He is wide open, but nobody sees him. And that happens like almost every time they run that play.
But
there's
it's
no
crazy.
There's no trust in the front court whatsoever.
It's weird. It's like the pick and roll is one of the most fundamental plays in basketball.
They're not even looking for it.
Yeah, and they can't even figure out how to run it.
I don't know if they can't figure out how to run it or if they just don't trust their forwards to make that kind of play.
And it's weird because, like, I've watched it, and the exact same thing happens with Tyler Roberson. He'll go up there, set the pick, he'll roll down to the basket, and never touches the ball.
Roberson gets all his points on putbacks, second
Yeah.
chance points in the paint. He creates his own baskets.
That's because he can't create a mid-range jumper.
Well, that's true.
Well, that's fine. If
That's
he's
true.
if
But
he's
there's
2 feet
there's
from the
no-
basket and wide open, give him the ball.
There's no insert passes whatsoever to the post.
Agreed. I just wanted to put out there that all of his points are in the paint for a reason.
Frank Howard had two passes right in a row to Leiden in the paint. The first time Leiden got it in, and like the look of shock on his face, he was like, "What is this ball doing in my hands right now?"
I should not be getting the ball right
Exactly.
here unless it's on a rebound.
And see, I think I saw it with Daewon as well. They were just like, "Oh my gosh!" And of
What
course,
do I do? What do I do?
Of
What do
course,
I do?
they totally
I'm not
duffed
at the
it.
3-point line. What am I getting the ball for?
Of course, they completely duffed it and had it stolen away from them because they just weren't expecting it. And that's so frustrating because, especially against a team like Virginia Tech, there was such a size advantage down there, such height and weight. So you would think that they would have capitalized on that a little more, but they just didn't recognize it.
You're listening to Orange Pulp. Us talk about Syracuse men's basketball. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk about women's basketball with Zach Francis, Ellen Burr. I'm Brian Armstrong. You're listening to Orange Pulp.
Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun.
That was
Get it
nice.
eventually,
That
Ellen.
was good. That was good, guys.
Welcome back to Orange Pulp with Zach Francis, Ellen Burr, Tim Ferguson. You're not going to hear his voice right now. You may hear him on a phone call.
He's following
in,
Marco Rubio around.
Yes, he's in New Hampshire covering politics. We decided
when
to
we-
cover sports.
When we call him in, he'll probably have something to say about Marco. Maybe something about Jeb. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll try to keep that to him.
We'll do anything in our power. I will hit the mute button if necessary if he starts talking too long on politics. But right now we're going to talk about SU women's basketball. They've won 3 straight after back-to-back bad losses, getting blown out. We were talking, okay, yes, you get blown out by UConn.
No, you
or
get
not-
blown out
by
by Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. That's one thing to happen. If you're going against UConn, you're going to get blown out. And it's all going to be based on, okay, where are they going? And since then, the competition hasn't been crazy at home, but they did win on the road against a ranked opponent.
Right.
Yeah, they took out Miami.
Yeah.
They're 16 in the country, and in what has not been the best year for ACC women's basketball, Miami is probably the favorite right now, other than Notre Dame.
Which is not saying much.
I was going to say Notre Dame kind of has that
Notre
upper
Dame
echelon of its own.
Yeah, Notre Dame is probably going to win the league this year. Probably going to go undefeated in the league this year, just because they're that damn good. But it gives Syracuse this confidence where, sure, you go out, you get blown out by Notre Dame, you lose to Louisville, a game that you probably should have won, a game that you probably, I don't know, should have been very competitive in at least. But then when you go down to Coral Gables, and really great town name, by the way. Just love that.
Coral Gables. That's hot.
She has been talking before the entire show, trying to get that inserted in the show, and it only took less than 15 minutes. Okay, back to
Where there's a will, there's a way.
I told you I'd get it in.
But, they go down to Coral Gables. They get a big win against the Hurricanes. And I think that it's sort of one of those, it could vaunt them into the discussion for a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament.
Alan, I've heard you talk a lot of times about their post play. Where do they need to get better, and why are they lacking in the post?
Well, Brianna Day is an incredible rebounder. As we've seen, she's just got that height. And we just haven't seen any post moves from her though. Kind of similar to the men's side in an eerie way, where
where the team shoots 98 threes a game.
Exactly. Like Brianna Butler just popping those trays, and when she misses, Brianna Day will probably get the rebound because she's that good, that tall. But as far as getting it into the post, she's, I don't want to say weak, but
she's soft.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think soft is a good
soft
word.
Soft might be over because that's one of the top criticisms, but it feels like
criticism.
Okay. Criticism.
Look that
There
one
we
up
go.
in the dictionary.
Yes. And
You can't shorten words when you're actually saying them, Brian, like you do when you're texting me, and I'm like, I don't understand what any of these words are.
quick side note on that. There's your side note reference.
Nope, side note.
I do text in as short of syllables as possible, so yes.
Hell, Zach, it's me, Bri.
Tomorrow is TRMW, but okay, no one cares. Let's go back to basketball.
Yeah.
So, criticism of her is that she's soft or inside, but it feels like if anyone matches up on her size, that she's pushed 5 yards out or 5 feet outside of the paint.
Yeah. The rebound she gets will be like a lucky bounce if anybody matches up height-wise with her. I think what's lacking there again is if she were to get it down low, I just don't think she has the moves to put it on and score. She's not that offender. You know what I mean? Though, like you see those post players that get it down low and
go grr.
You know what I mean? Like bows out, spin moves, little baby hooks. Like she doesn't have anything in her post move repertoire that we've really seen this year.
She's not like your favorite women's player in the country, Brianna Stewart.
Brianna Stewart is damn good. Yeah, that being said, she's not my favorite player. So,
not your favorite player or not your favorite person?
We won't get into that.
Good answer. So now that the women's segment has completely gone off the rails, what's logical to expect for this team? I know we've touched on March Madness before for them and how far they can go, but my biggest question with it is, could we see them possibly getting bounced in the first round if matchups just go wrong and there's a better team inside?
I mean, I think anything is possible. I think if they're going to win, Brianna Butler has to be on. Brianna Day has to at least get the defensive rebounds, obviously. And Alexis Peterson needs to just dish it out.
No, Alexis Peterson needs to do what she's done all year.
All year. And she's so consistent. I have no doubt in that, unless some fluke illness comes up again.
Which that was the weirdest when that happened earlier in the season when it was played. Why is she for 30 seconds? Okay, she's sick.
I would even go so far as to say that Alexis Peterson should be in the conversation, at least in the conversation.
For WNBA?
Well, yeah, for the WNBA. But I would even say for Conference Player of the Year.
Huh.
I
think that's so...
Because I'm guessing that it's probably going to be somebody from Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The thing about Conference Player of the Year, they don't just take into account the individual player. They look at how the team performance as well.
Yeah. So, and I mean, you also have to look at it when they're out there.
Yeah, I think the Conference Player of the Year is going to come from Notre Dame, but I definitely think Alexis Peterson will be recognized in some way.
I mean, I think
in some form.
Like
I think
all-conference team.
Yeah, all ACC team.
Yeah.
But I mean, after watching her play a lot this year, she is a really good point guard.
Oh, she's fabulous.
Yeah, she can see.
She is a true point guard.
Yeah, she has some really good court vision. She can find these open players out on the perimeter because because Coach Q doesn't like to post it inside. But
annoying.
Who doesn't give up any points inside for getting pushed around? It's all transition points.
Hey, nothing against transition points.
No, it's just it seems like that's always the reason every single week. Now, Coach Q is awesome, but whenever that's the excuse, I'm like, did we not watch the same game? But we'll continue to monitor as it goes, see how the women's basketball proceeds, and hopefully they can make a good run, and matchups will go their way that they can make a deep run, because, let's be honest, if you match up, we saw what happened against Notre Dame, we can assume what's going to happen against UConn. Well, you can go a few games if everything falls correct.
What would a UConn SU game look like?
Did you see the Notre Dame game at 20?
No, I don't think it would be 20. I don't think it would be 20. I think it would end up being about the same score because it was like 30. And it's hard to lose by more than 30.
See, I was thinking it was like a 45-point blowout.
It is hard to lose by more than 30.
Because who would they put on Brianna Stewart? Brianna Day?
They'd have to.
That says it all right there. You're listening to Orange Pulp. Orange Pulp. I swear I can talk. With the Pope, yes, Zach the Pope Francis. Ellen
Bless
Burr.
this podcast.
I'm going to leave that one alone. You're listening to Orange Pulp. Welcome back to Orange Pulp with Zach the Pope Francis as he blessed this podcast. Ellen Burr, who
didn't bless the podcast.
Well, we've
Sending
only
this podcast to hell.
We've only got one Pope in the BDJ program here. So, yeah.
Getting back to ACC men's basketball. UNC leads by 1 game, lost to Louisville, who's in second, so there's the tiebreaker implications there.
Ryan, you just read exactly what I had written down on the rundown.
Yes, is that a bad thing? Do you not want me to use your
Don't reveal our secrets.
You could have added in a couple of extra
This
words.
entire thing is scripted.
We're all reading off of scripts right now.
Trust me, if we were all reading off of scripts, I would be...
It would be like, and today on Orange Pulp,
it's going to be this.
No.
And now that this podcast has gone completely off the rails.
I also don't think we would script it going off the rails or me seeing criticism.
It makes it more authentic.
Oh, yes. I'm going to leave a mistake in there just so I can know what it feels like. But...
What?
No, it's... Okay, that jokes sometimes fail, and apparently that one was...
That one fell flat.
Yes. Okay, back to ACC basketball. Like this podcast, basically, stuck in the middle of the pack. And
I wouldn't call us middle of the pack.
I don't think we're middle of the pack.
I think we are.
We're not even, we're chasing the pack right now.
So you're telling us we're NC State of the podcast community or Boston College?
Hey.
I like the Boston College reference better.
I don't even know where we're going right now.
We're talking about ACC men's
ACC.
basketball. UNC is leading by 1.
Okay, explain this conference as a whole for just the down year that's going on.
I look at it, and I don't want to pin it all back on one team, but I almost think that
Is it Syracuse's fault?
No, it's not Syracuse's fault. I would almost blame it all on Duke.
What?
I could see that.
Because you look at it, Duke is always a perennial powerhouse. They are struggling this year like they haven't for the past, almost decade. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, you don't have Duke up in the top 25. Sure, you've still got the Tar Heels up there, but Tar Heels, sorry. But it's just, I don't know. It's weird to me watching this conference because I love ACC basketball. And I'm just not being wowed by anybody this year. I don't think that there's a legitimate title contender in the conference.
You don't think UNC is?
No.
Huh.
Ellen, you seem flabbergasted by that.
I'm just thinking about it. Give me a second to think about it.
Okay, well, let me give a second. Zach, we'll talk on why do you think that UNC can't contend for a title?
Because I think that everything would have to just lay out perfectly for them. I think that there are better teams like Oklahoma, like Kansas, that even if they get a difficult tournament game, I think that they could come up with a way to win. But then I go back to that UNC loss to Northern Iowa. there's no way to explain that loss.
Wasn't Marcus Page out that game?
Sure, Marcus Page
and it was
out
also
that
the
game.
very beginning of the season.
Was Kennedy Meeks? No, Kennedy
Meeks was playing then, which I have my own thoughts on Kennedy Meeks. Talk about a soft player. That's just me.
No, I have my own thoughts about Kennedy Meeks as far as the chemistry between him and Bryce Johnson
We'll
goes.
lay it out there on the
podcast. I love Bryce Johnson.
Really?
I love Bryce
Oh
Johnson.
my gosh, he is just... He rubs me the wrong way. He's a great player.
No, that's how I love Bryce Johnson. As a person, I probably wouldn't like him.
Oh my gosh. I was covering the SU-UNC game, and that was the first game that Kennedy Meeks was back. Yeah, Brian, what?
Go ahead. No, continue. Go ahead. I'm enjoying it.
No, and Kennedy Meeks, it just really threw a wrench into things when he came back because Bryce Johnson was having this breakout season. He
had like 38 and 26 against Florida State.
Unreal. Like, he was playing so well, and it's because he dominated the paint. That was his zone. With Kennedy Meeks in there, they were arguing about spacing. Like, you don't argue with somebody about that at the college level. You should just know. And Bryce Johnson had one of his worst, it wasn't bad, but one of his worst games this season. So,
I mean, I look at Bryce Johnson. He's the top player in the conference right now.
oh, I agree.
Yeah, I think that he is.
Over Brandon Ingram, though, but
I think Brandon Ingram will get Freshman of the Year. He won't be Player of the Year.
okay.
I really like Brandon Ingram. I think he is a very talented with a unique skill set. But I think Bryce Johnson is probably the best overall player right now. Mm-hmm. I think Ingram will have a great pro career. Bryce Johnson will probably flame out in a couple of years.
I agree.
He'll be very similar to like a John Henson.
Mm-hmm.
I can see both of those things.
Yeah. Especially like when you look at mock drafts right now, and Brandon Ingram's the projected 2, 3, second, third overall pick.
Simmons, right?
Yeah, behind Simmons. Which ESPN always figures out a way to bring Ben Simmons into literally every game.
Simmons is awesome, so it's completely
He's
acceptable.
awesome, yeah, but I'm like, come
And
on.
in 1 week and 2 days, Ben Simmons and LSU will be taking on.
But I mean, I'm like, come on. It's like Duke, Carolina, and you're talking about Ben Simmons. What are you
It's true,
talking
though.
about? Why couldn't either team get him?
Have you guys seen this kid play?
The best tweet and all, and Ben Simmons is awesome, but the best tweet a few weeks ago was Magic Johnson tweeting, "This Simmons guy, he's for real." Or something to that effect.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Magic.
He's gonna make it in the
I bless
NBA.
this Simmons.
Magic, I would almost compare. Wow, now we're going off on a Ben Simmons
Yeah.
thing. He's just like one of those players that you can't help but talk about. I get it now.
You mentioned it, and he just sucks you in.
Ben Simmons.
He's in the SEC. I don't like the SEC.
Okay, back to the ACC.
Yeah, back to the ACC. It's been a really down year for the conference, and I hate saying that.
Really?
Yes.
I think it's been a weird year for the entire NCAA.
Yeah,
I
It's
don't
been a
think
weird
it's
year
been.
in college
I don't
basketball.
think it's been a weird year. I think last year where you had a dominant team in Kentucky is a weird year. This is-
Kentucky's had a weird
yes, but
year.
I'm saying last year when what Kentucky did with just dominating everybody until obviously the Final Four.
Womp womp.
But that was I think a weird year with the new layout of college basketball and the way things have been going. The new norm is the top 25 changing like crazy.
Yeah, you're used to the top 25 changing. You're not used to the number one team being different every other week.
I believe it happened. I'm going off the back of just off the top of my head right now. A couple of years ago, the top five changed something like 8 times in 2 weeks. And it was just teams losing, and the number one changed 5 times in straight back to back to back.
Yeah,
to back.
I remember that. But I go back to this weird stat that I heard a couple of weeks ago. This season was the first time since like the 48-49 season that you'd had 5 different number one teams before February. You're not used to that. I'm not used to that, and I don't know that I like it.
So who do you think the number one team should be at this point?
I mean, I agree that it's Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. That Buddy Heidel is
they're gonna
playing
win?
out of his mind.
Do you think they're going to win the whole thing?
No.
Are you about that Iowa State?
No. I think that it's going to be like UConn was a couple of years ago, where they win as like a 7 seed. and it's going to be somebody that just really surprises everybody.
I can see that.
On the other side of that, Kentucky surprised that year because that was their horrible year too. Who lost to UNC in the finals?
It would be really ironic to see Kentucky win the national title this year.
As when no one thought.
Be a good 30 for 30.
That would be a
What
really
if
good
I
30
told
for 30.
you that the team that couldn't be beat was beat, and the team that finished middle of the road won a
Won it
title?
all.
We'll have that, and something that a 30 for 30 could be Dean talked about. Johnny Manziel, also Super Bowl
They're
coverage.
already in the works. Already in the works.
It would not shock me. And we'll see if Tim's going to be able to be called in, if Tim phones home for better, because this show is going to be dedicated for Tim. You're listening to Orange Pulp.
Dedicated.
Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun.
You're listening to Orange Pulp. We're going to have Tim Ferguson calling in just a few minutes. At 10:30, the bottom of the hour, we're expected to hear from him as he's come from New Hampshire. We've got Zach Francis and Ellen Burr. The topic of discussion, Johnny Manziel.
Johnny Football.
Yes,
Johnny Rehab.
I think that's
No, it's Johnny.
Johnny denied
turned
rehab.
rehab. Johnny turned down
Johnny no rehab.
So, we've got all the allegations. You've got the story just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. His dad's coming, going, worried for his life if he's going to die unless he changes his way. How has it gone so wrong for Johnny Manziel? Obviously, we're not shrinks or anything, but just in your opinion.
Yeah, I think that the pressure of being a superstar has gotten to him. And there are some people, they just can't handle that. And I think that everything came on for him so hard and so fast that he didn't know how to handle it. And that's just how everything happened. And you hate to see something like this. But, every few years you do. Maybe not to this extent, but it's not as uncommon. And Johnny Manziel has just, he took to the limelight, and everybody can't get enough of him.
Is it just as simple as something as like this of everything came so easy to him in life, he loved to party, and now he's gotten in the NFL and he goes, I don't want to party. Or I don't want to give up partying.
I mean, I'm not an expert, and I know this is a touchy subject, but
That's the thing about Orange Pulp. We touch on these touchy subjects.
Well, I mean, I'm no doctor, but I think you could it almost seems like a mental illness in a way. Like, there's definitely, I don't think it's just his personality. I think something is definitely going on.
Yeah.
And he obviously needs help, whether that's rehab, counseling. I mean, I don't know, but there's something horribly wrong with him right now.
He went to rehab last offseason, and at the time, I just said, it's for self-image. It's to make himself appear to be better than he actually is, which wasn't a public sentiment to be said aloud, but it was thought a lot behind the scenes because you're hearing once he started getting caught, is he in Vegas? Is he disguised in Vegas? What's this thing going on down in Texas? You see, oh, he missed practice because he was out partying. You see, oh, he's buying liquor at a store. There's so many things adding up. And if it wasn't such a touchy subject, I think we could talk about, you've got some brass ones on you, just be like, hey, no, it's not me. It's just everyone's misconstruing the situation. But obviously, rehab, he went into it to help his public image, not to help himself. And you can't...
I don't know about that. I mean, I think public image was a huge thing, but...
I've never been convinced that he willingly went into
I
rehab.
honestly think it was an agent or someone like that saying, hey,
or
this
maybe
will
a
help
family
you.
member.
This will help you with
I always thought
your
it was
image.
a family member, yeah.
I honestly thought it was a marketing person.
Really?
To be completely honest. Now, obviously, I don't
I think
have
it might
any
have
insight.
played with it.
And it was, hey, don't worry. And someone didn't inform him properly of, hey, this means you're going to have to give up all of that. And just going, but you might get a starting quarterback job.
And we've got Tim Ferguson on the line. Big time Timmy John, welcome on to Orange Pulp this week. So, Tim, we're talking about Johnny Manziel.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on
I just
Manziel?
read today. I think it was from the rundown, but I looked at a few things, and it's possible suspension on the horizon for Johnny football.
Probably
I think
not
the
a
NFL doesn't do anything. What's that?
probably not a possible suspension. I think that he's definitely gone for at minimum a year.
Is that really what they're saying now?
That's what I've heard Schefter saying.
Wow. I mean, I don't know how long they can let this linger, because even though, maybe evidence wasn't quite the same as it was for, Ray Rice or, players like that, but to have multiple reports come out now that he's been having this type of a violent relationship with his girlfriend, and then, of course, all the other shenanigans that have been going on, if the NFL doesn't take a stand, they really look foolish. But you know what? They're going to spend more money on Deflategate probably anyway. So in the end, they'll probably incriminate Brady more than they will in any of these situations.
Leave it to Tim to bring.
Their priorities are always in the right place.
Tim, first of all, leave it to you to reference Deflategate and how the NFL is against you. But back onto the serious issue of it, with Manziel, is there a rush to fix this problem? You can do a thorough investigation because of cap implications. You can't release him quite yet because it'll just take too much of a cap hit for Cleveland. Once it makes financial sense for them during the offseason, they will release him. And also, what team's going to touch him right now? It's not like he's a good quarterback, because he's not.
The Cowboys have even said, we're not taking a chance on him.
When We Them Boys doesn't want to.
I don't think anybody should take a chance on him. I don't think from a playing standpoint there's enough of a sample set to really say, okay, yeah, we want this guy. And I think, again, coming back to the issues of domestic violence, whether or not you're actually married to that individual or engaged or just dating them, it doesn't matter. Like, they have to be strong. You can't be strong in one situation and then say, well, this is just, a little minor stuff here with Manziel. So, cap hits and financial issues, they're all relevant for the teams. But, I think the bigger issue is if you're going to have, these basically campaigns against domestic violence and saying that the NFL supports it, you got to go through a full investigation. And look, what Greg Hardy did was absolutely ridiculous too, and they, somewhat went through a thorough investigation to figure that piece out before they suspended him, like on 2 occasions. So I think that's the bigger issue, but I just don't know whether they can ever get it right. It just seems like the rule book changes no matter what the circumstances are.
You're listening to Orange Pulp. We got Tim Ferguson on the line. Tim, you talked about how they can't get it right. Okay, yes, we all agree they botched the Ray Rice thing, so they demanded for harsher penalties. They gave the harsher penalties, and they keep losing every appeal. What is the NFL supposed to do? NFL is a great thing to bash, but when they try to get it right, they lose on appeal. They lose on appeal.
Well, I think the tough part is when you're trying to suspend people for actions that are very serious and just totally deplorable behavior, there is the law that's also involved. And can your employer essentially give you harsher penalties than the law would, or vice versa? And so that's probably one of their biggest obstacles, and the biggest obstacles to the situation is the justice system and how it interprets things. In certain states where the players might be residents, and then also states where they play, just a lot of extra stuff there. Maybe it's a bigger issue for America that they need to get a handle on this first. But that's why I'm up here in New Hampshire trying to figure out what the best thing is for America, and I still haven't figured it out yet.
So Tim, are you going to be making America great again?
Well, I wouldn't be doing it with him. I would definitely have to do it on my own.
He's following Ricky Rubio, so
I don't think he hasn't really made America great up here, because rumor has it that he hasn't stayed a day in New Hampshire. That being the Donald, he's been flying back home to New York every night, which he can, and then he had to cancel his events yesterday because of the bad weather. So the Donald's not playing his cards right in New Hampshire, so he might not be able to make America great.
Okay, that's enough politics from Tim. but I hope everything is going well out in New Hampshire. Tim, we're going to do things a little out of order just because of the fact of you being out there and having to cover so many things. Tim, what is Tim's takes?
Well, that's the thing. You're going to get a little bit more politics.
Okay, go ahead.
Out of bounds.
You've got 90 seconds.
You can't put a limit on somebody's takes.
I can put a limit on politics.
Politics and sports are kind of the same sometimes. So, just some quick observations while I've been up here. From a sports spin, actually, the Republican political debate, they got to be up to 10 or more by now. But it's tonight on ABC at 8. But most of the candidates have been having rallies like the night before during the day. And last night, John Kasich from Ohio, who's doing very well up here in New Hampshire, actually, he had former Patriot Mike Vrabel at his rally. Now, I wasn't there, so I don't know what it was like. I should have gone, but I had to cover Rubio instead. So some people are trying to capitalize on that sports connection up here. If Larry Bird was at a rally, I probably would have definitely done that, but that's not really...
Wouldn't even matter who it was.
It wouldn't matter. No, it might even be
Trump. You would have gotten behind
Sarah
Palin.
But just kind of the way things look up here, obviously, Bernie Sanders, has a strong connection coming home from Vermont, and I think there's a good possibility that he could win the primary here in New Hampshire. There's a lot of support from young people, particularly college students, and I think if they get out and they vote, I think he takes New Hampshire, and then we're looking at South Carolina being a huge part of the primary season. Obviously, with him and Hillary Clinton kind of neck and neck, at least right now, and then we'll see what happens. And then on the Republican side, Cruz is not making waves up here. So after he won in Iowa, narrowly with just one extra delegate and a few more thousand votes in their caucus, you would have thought he would have rode the wave. But him and Trump are starting to slip behind. Like I said, Kasich's done well here. He'll probably pull some delegates away. And but I think Rubio will get the nomination in the end. But I think he's gonna win here in New Hampshire, and it's gonna be that sort of come from behind story we're gonna hear forever and ever. His story of his parents and his family, and he's gonna be the baby for the Republicans to ride. So it's been fun. It's like the Super Bowl kind of for people up here in New Hampshire. They really revel in this every 4 years.
So Tim, are you sort of comparing Marco there to your 04 Red Sox being down in a 03 hole?
I don't know, because when you come out of Iowa,
about the Red Sox?
He had 7 delegates, and so did Trump, and Cruz had 8. So it's not like that he was really that far behind. But I think when you talk for the last, 6-7 months, it's basically we've heard Cruz and Trump, and that Rubio would be kind of like that third guy. So, there is somewhat of a come from behind story, but it could be like come from behind just for this, and then be like domination all the way through the rest of the way. So, maybe more like the 04 Red Sox coming from behind, then winning 2 more World Series in the next 10 years. It's kind of like that thing. Brian can appreciate that.
Thanks, Tim.
So,
Hope everything's going well in New Hampshire.
Wait, real quick, where's my girl Ellen? Is she there?
Hi, Tim.
Ellen! How are you?
How are you, Tim?
Hey, the mayor of Boston was up here, Ellen.
What?
So, yeah. I saw him after the Democratic debate the other night. So
I'm jealous.
I need you to come back and cover lacrosse in the Boston area.
Yes.
As the geek out against Boston just continues to happen. Hope everything's going well in New Hampshire, Tim. Hope the politics are going well and that you actually get some sleep. I hear your hours are absolutely insane.
They're pretty crazy. They're pretty crazy. But, Leslie's up here. I think he's running for office in 2020, so we'll see how that works for him. So.
Well, I'm sure he fits the age requirement. You're listening to Orange Pulp. You're listening to Orange Pulp. We just had Tim Ferguson on the other side. If you want to hear that, if you have just tuned in, I don't know how that'd be happening on a podcast, but if you just like clicking randomly around, there's that. Tim was earlier. He'll be back next week. We've got Zach Francis, Ellen Burr. Now, back to, okay, here comes the homer call. I'm going to save it now. I'm giving you 60 seconds of Carolina. Go.
We're winning the Super Bowl. I mean, that's all the time I need. We're winning the Super Bowl.
Okay, the one time I give you time,
Yeah, you don't actually ever give me my full time.
I always hit you.
No, you always cut in, so I don't ever get my full time.
Okay. You're moving the conversation along, but okay. Ellen, what's your thoughts on the Super Bowl? Just quick over the top before we dive into it.
I think that the Panthers are going to win it. And
You don't have to sound so solemn about that.
No,
That's a
I'm
good
not
thing.
feeling. I'm not feeling solemn. I mean, yeah, I don't want to make any predictions because I don't like being wrong. But I do think the Panthers are going to be.
You're going to be
win.
making an official prediction, so think of the score.
No, I'm not, Brian. I refuse to.
Well, then you're just violating every talk show radio host job ever.
No, I'm just changing it.
No. You're the people that bug every person on sports going, I don't think I can make a pick. Cam Newton,
Revolutionizing.
he's really good. But Denver, it would be great to see Peyton Manning go out on top.
No, she said that.
I said
she
Panthers.
She thinks
the Panthers,
the
are
Panthers
going to
are going to win.
I'm
but
not
we-
good with numbers though.
Okay,
So yeah, she's like not going to give a score.
I can tolerate that.
I clearly said Panthers are going to win.
I was going to say, but you were like, but I just wanted to make sure we've got a definitive, everything, the official.
Panthers are going to win the Super Bowl. Is that official enough for you, Brian?
I think it just is. So, Zach, outside of them winning the Super Bowl, why?
Luke.
I think Luke Kuechly is going to play a big role in that.
That's hot.
I'm more surprised you didn't say he's hot, but I think that their offense is just so much better than Denver's.
Oh, hands down.
I mean, I love Peyton Manning, but he just needs to retire.
Did you read the article on ESPN where they talked about how long it takes him to take off his gear? At the
No,
end
I
of the game?
didn't.
It takes him 15 minutes with people helping him.
Peyton,
I want to get to a point in my career where people help me to take.
Peyton takes him 15. Peyton.
How sad is that?
Well, you know he's
Peyton
going
Manning, if you ever listen to this, I love you, but
It's time.
it's time. Oh, that's sad. That made me sad.
I'm sorry.
Oh, the Panthers are going to win, though. I'm happy again. So,
Could there be any argument on the other side of being, okay, Denver's clearly got the better defense. Now it's not as wide.
Clearly?
Yes, it is.
clearly,
Yes.
I don't think so.
Denver has the better defense, but it's not as much of a gap as the Carolina has the better offense. Carolina obviously has the much better offense by a large margin. Denver, I know for a fact we've all said Denver has the better defense.
I haven't said that.
Yes,
I think Denver does have the better defense, but I think it's pretty close.
But I think it's close.
It's
I don't think
really
they have
close.
the better defense.
Really?
Yeah,
well,
I don't
that's your
think so.
fanboy coming in.
No, I mean, I
I
look
think it's
at
really,
it.
really close.
think-
I
and I
think
think-
Denver
I
has
think
better
one of the-
defense.
Denver has
I
the
think
number
one
one
of the
defense.
I think
in the
one of the
league.
clear things you need to look at is takeaways. And you look at that front seven and Josh Norman. Mm-hmm. And they can force fumbles. They get interceptions. A big reason for that, BC grad Luke Kuechly. Mm-hmm. But
Star Latulele.
Kawan Short has come on. He is a sack machine. I mean, I look at that defense and I say that is a dominant defense. It's not as good as the Panthers' defense was a couple of years ago, but they are damn good.
My argument with it is when you take, other than Norman, the secondary, we've talked about it before, the secondary is not special. 26th in passing since about the 14th week of the season. So you think they've dropped in. Their front seven is insane. There's no argument there. The concern is with the lack of mobility of Peyton Manning.
It doesn't get to the
Is
secondary.
it good?
Yeah.
And then the arm strength of not being able to throw downfield. That's going to be what concerns me.
So sad.
And
Yeah.
part of me is a little scared that we're going to see another Denver,
Oh, no.
Seattle. Because when Denver loses in the Super Bowl, they lose in the Super Bowl. So we've heard an unofficial score prediction last week. We've heard officially Carolina's going to win. Zach, what do you have?
28-10 Panthers.
28-10. You don't want to give an official score.
Because I don't know.
But, okay, the odds of getting the score exact are not right. But
Okay.
if you're
They're virtually
Let's
zero.
go.
But if you're in the ballpark, like, oh, you say 6 and it's a 5-point game, that's...
Fine. Okay, let's go a little bit higher scoring in honor of our favorite man, Leslie. 32-17.
32-17. Now, the thing that's weird, when a team scores at least 40 points in the playoffs, all the wise guys in the pool bet the other side because they cover the spread less than 10% of the time. So if you're going through that logic, it's going to be a close game. Because it's hard to beat teams by such a huge margin and put up that many points in back-to-back weeks. You kind of regress a little to the mean. The other defense is toned up. You've been told how great you are. And it's the same feeling I had with New England versus Denver. And I said it on air. I said, this is terrifying me because I'm getting the same feeling. I'm getting that same feeling again because everyone's picking the other side, and what's the best thing to do is just pick. And I didn't have the gumption to do it last week, and I'm not going to have the gumption to do it this week either because I think Carolina is still going to win. Having said that, I think it's going to be a 2-point game, 32-30.
You are thinking it's going to be a lot closer than it actually is.
I could be very wrong, and it scares me at point of it because I could see just teeing off, and I can see
because I don't see any way the Broncos put up that many points.
Honestly, I don't either. But what I could see is does a weird snap happen, a quick fumble for a quick 6, something in there? Does C.J. Anderson break one? And just start adding up, and then Carolina get into the hole 14-3 real quick. Then you get something on the sideline. This is just how I've tried to play it out in my mind of what I could see it happen.
I think that Brian just tries to come up with the worst case scenario for every situation, and then he argues that, and I'm just no, it's not going to happen.
Well, right now I can't go back on it because I still said New England was going to win. But I was saying there's this scenario that could happen, and every single one of those came true, except for I thought the 2-point conversion, I didn't think Gostowski would miss an extra point. I didn't realize that worst-case scenario in over 500 attempts, which then you kick it, the game goes to overtime, and I think New England would have won in overtime. But I just start seeing things happening, and I go, can it really be that bad again? Can it really be? And I'm the person who said I didn't want to see Peyton Manning play in the Super Bowl because this year has been just bad.
Can you not just let me have this, Brian? I just want the Panthers to be there. I just want them to win. Then I have a question.
Go.
If the Panthers win,
yeah,
where do they rank as an all-time great team?
In a 1-year capacity.
In a 1-year capacity.
That's
I always argue that Washington Redskins, when they won their 3 Super Bowls in just a short period of time, that they don't get the credit that they deserve because they did it with different quarterbacks and how everything shaped out because you didn't have those star names. The defense is awesome, but just look at the offensive names outside of Cam Newton. Jonathan Stewart's a good back, not great. Tolbert is the most jolly man ever, but he's not a great player. Ted Bleepin Gibb.
My friend Danny Beckman says that Mike Tolbert is the happiest man he has ever seen, and that is the reason that he bought a Mike Tolbert jersey.
Ted Bleepin Ginn has been around the league just because he has speed but can't catch a pass. You've lost your number 1 receiver. Olsen is obviously an awesome tight end.
Best tight end in the league, than Gronk.
Okay, I was going to say I'd have Gronk ahead of him, but I would put Olsen. Trying to think, I would say, because Kelsey, it's too reliant on a bad quarterback with Smith because he's checked down Charlie. But yeah, I can totally see because obviously Jimmy Graham in Seattle's offense did not do that well. So you have a lot of things within that. But yes, I can give the Greg Olsen outside of, obviously, Rob Gronkowski, because Rob's in a tier of his own. So Cam is obviously your star player, but you look through everything else.
Thanks for that insight, Brian.
Yes, #analysis. But I'm trying to captivate through. You're the one who asked the question without us going through, so I'm just trying to work through it in my brain. And Jared O'Cotry, Philly Brown, none of those are standout. So I think what they did was just insane, and you're going to look at the roster 10 years down and go, outside of Cam, who did they have on the offensive side of the ball? Obviously, they make that up with their insane front seven and Josh Norman. But
you also have to look at how good their offensive line is.
Oh, yes. I mentioned the offensive line being very solid. And like I said last week, there's few things we can say definitively. One thing we can say is they're going to protect Cam better than New England protected Tom Brady because the offensive line in New England is in shambles. Where do you rank it, Ellen?
The offensive line?
Well, just Carolina in this one season.
Because I don't think that you can look at it as over...
I think it's hard.
They're not a traditional power.
No.
I think it's hard to look at a team in just one season and call them the best ever. I think it needs to be more of a dynasty.
Well, I think...
You don't... I mean... I don't know.
They're not touching the 85 Bears.
No,
way.
I always look at the 85 Bears as the best single-season team
hands down.
ever.
And then the 72 Dolphins obviously going undefeated.
I look at that. Yeah, sure. But...
I think that the Bears beat.
Yeah.
But we're dealing with, obviously, 13-year gap.
Yeah. I think that, again, it's hard to look at a team in a single season. I think if they continue this dynasty, because they're a very young team, then we can talk about best ever. But I think it's too early to tell.
One thing is for certain, they'll be getting their best wide receiver back next year.
Kelvin Benjamin.
And the last time we had this conversation of in a one-year capacity, where do they beat the rest of the teams? That was in 2007 with the New England Patriots on their 18-0 before they ended up losing to the Giants. You're listening to Orange
The good thing
Pulp.
about these Panthers, though, they've already lost a game.
Yes, they have. You're listening to Orange Pulp with Zach Francis, Ellen Burr. You heard from Tim Ferguson earlier. He's out in New Hampshire. He'll be back next week, and we'll be coming right back after the segment with just our individual thoughts of Burr's boiling point?
Bonus point.
Bonus point. Burr's bonus point. It's new. Let me go. And then...
Boiling point, really?
I thought that...
Was that the only B word you could think
of?
Burr, you've hit my boiling point, Brian, for getting that wrong.
What was this voice?
I don't know.
Zach zeroing in, and you already heard Tim's takes, and you'll hear the BA mode.
The B-A moment!
This is Orange Pulp. Welcome back to Orange Pulp with Zach Francis, Ellen Burr. So we're going to start it with Zach zeroing in. Zach, what do you have?
I just want to talk about the league. The NBA, they've come out and said a couple of things over the last few days that I'm glad that they did, because I think it's important for the league to take a stance on a couple of these things. They said that they don't like Hack-a-Shaq, because I've never liked it either. Sure, you take the big man that can't shoot free throws, put him on the line 98 times in a game, and just make him shoot. I don't think that is the way that basketball should be played.
It's not aesthetically pleasing, but it bails out someone who doesn't shoot a free throw. This is a larger topic, but I just wanted to question on, yes, it's horrible for the viewer, but it is part of basketball.
Yeah, it's part of basketball, but it didn't really happen. Until Shaq came into the league.
Because he was an awful free throw shooter.
Yes. And because he was so dominant inside. But then you look at it, even when they were trying to hack at him, he was still getting to the bucket. He was still scoring his points that way. And now they've moved on to Hack-a-DeAndre, Hack-a-Drummond.
Sorry to knock you off your point there, but I just wanted to kind of touch right there.
Yeah.
There is, yes, I hate watching it, but it does have a purpose.
It has a purpose, yes. But then when you have one of these dominant players, they're still going to get to the basket. And so then at a certain point, you're going to give them free points. So
knock down your free throws and it doesn't happen. But okay, continue on with your issue.
Yeah. And then the league also said that they don't like this idea of tanking to get a top spot in the draft. And I 100% agree with that.
What's your alternative?
Get better.
How do you get better outside of the draft or having been one of the 5 cities that are destination cities? Because you need to either get free agents.
You get those coaches that can get this effort, that get your best players, no matter how bad your best player is, it gets the best out of your players.
Okay, but that's only going so far. In the NBA and basketball, it's not like any other sport. One player can completely change a team, and no one's doing it alone as well. So you need a destination city or the draft. Or you middle in mediocrity.
I don't know that there is a good alternative, but I think that the league should come up with some way to punish these teams that are just saying, you know what, we're going to lose on purpose. Because, and I mean, like, you look at the 76ers, they're not getting any better. They've been tanking for years.
Oh, I hate it. But it's an amazing business strategy to secure your GM position going, we're going to be bad for 5 years.
Well,
Just
yeah.
accept it. And you can't be fired because being bad is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, but then you look at them, they're not getting any better through the draft. They're getting this talent, but they're only stocking it up in the front court. And, I mean, like, you look at their guards. The 76ers guards are awful. You want to get better, draft better guards.
I thought Joel Embiid was a good decision.
I thought it was a bad idea.
I thought it would have been good because he was going to be number one had he not gotten hurt.
Which I thought was dumb then.
He was such a talent. And
he had played like 15 games at Kansas.
Yes, but he was very talented, and there was the idea of, okay, if he can get back healthy. Obviously, now there's the questions of work ethic, diet, etc. But having said all that, I thought it was a good decision at the time. I can live with it.
I thought it was awful then. I still look at it as one of the worst draft decisions ever.
I think that goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Anthony Bennett?
Yes.
Did Bennett and Embiid, did they go the same year, or was that different years?
I believe different. Because wasn't it Okafor? I'm blanking on it, but continue on.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, you look at Embiid, and I look at that as one of the worst draft decisions ever. But going back to the tanking idea, it's not the way that the game is supposed to be played. And it's sort of like you said, Brian. It's the GM protecting himself for a few years, saying, hey, we're going to be bad. We're going to suck. Stick with me, and we'll get better. And you look at these teams that continue to tank, they're not getting better. And so it's these GMs that are trying to protect themselves, and then they're not doing their job. So if you want to tank, go ahead, but at least do your job to get better. Oh, Embiid came in the Wiggins-Jabari Parker year.
So I just flipped Okafor, and
Okafor.
Okafor.
That's right. That's why I always thought that the Joel Embiid idea was so dumb, because you look at Jabari Parker, you look at Andrew Wiggins, and those are franchise cornerstones.
Yes, but they had the number 3. It's not like they picked Embiid over the two of them.
It was the Cavaliers that were saying that they were going to take Embiid.
Oh, okay, I got what you're saying.
When he was in the conversation for the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
Because you look at that and you say, Andrew Wiggins, yeah, I'll take him number 1 any year. You look at Jabari Parker, I made the argument that Parker should go number 1. But this Joel Embiid thing has gotten us off topic. Don't like tanking, don't like hack-a-shack. I'm glad that the league has said that they're going to take a stance against it to prevent these things.
Burr's bonus point. What do you got?
Bonus or boiling point?
Well, the boiling point for the Cardinals with their postseason ban. Louisville obviously announced yesterday, that they will be inflicting a self-imposed postseason ban, similar to what we saw from Syracuse this past year. The difference between Syracuse and Louisville, though, is that Louisville actually had a chance at postseason play, unlike Syracuse last year. So it comes at an interesting time, which begs the question, was this really self-imposed, or was this more pushed by the NCAA? So, I think it's the latter, but this is definitely not the end for Louisville. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and I think we could be seeing some worse punishments than we have with Syracuse.
The question I have for you is, do you just see it being the NCAA, being the typical NCAA where they spin the wheel and whatever it lands on, they just give a random violation codes? Or do you think they'll actually stick with a solid punishment and consistency?
I think it'll become more consistent as this stuff comes up, and it is coming up more and more frequently. I think Syracuse really got the ball rolling with that. But again, this is the second time in 2 years this has happened, and I think Syracuse was a nice practice round. Obviously, wasn't handled very well, and it's a whole different scandal with Louisville. You know, you're comparing a sex scandal to like academic and booster scandals, so that'll be interesting. But I don't know. We all have our feelings about the NCAA as we verbalized before. I think it'll just be very interesting to watch and keep up with as the rest of the season goes on. And yeah, that's it for me for bonus points. Bonus point.
So does that mean it's time for the moment we've all been waiting for? The B.A. moment!
Okay,
I like that Ellen joined in with me that time. That was
I'll
nice.
try to harmonize next time.
So the BA moment is going to be on a sport that I enjoy, that I don't get to, that I don't talk.
I'm
too
leaving
much about.
since you're talking about soccer.
But it's actually going to be required on YouTube as a little bit. So managing in soccer is, I think, the most difficult job. But the thing is we'll give a player or a coach, manager, Jose Mourinho, who is, by all accounts and purposes, expected to take over the Man United job, which is one of the biggest jobs in the world. Mourinho is an interesting character, though. And I'll compare it to a sport that a lot of us know, and all of us in here know, American football.
What?
Yes. This is where I'll compare. Mourinho has the success of Bill Belichick. Wins titles nonstop. Wherever he goes, he wins you a title. Then he has the longevity of Jim Harbaugh. 3 years, and he's out of there. He's gone from Porto to Chelsea to Inter to Real, back to Chelsea, and now he's expected to go to Man United. Then he leaves a locker room where players can't stand him, so you get all the horrible things coming out, and then some players randomly will love him and say the one great thing about him, and then he'll go. So you take the longevity of Harbaugh, you take the winning of Bill Belichick, and then you take just a blank check of the Yankees. And that's basically what Man United is.
So he's kind of like Larry Brown.
Kind of,
Except he's
much younger.
Obviously.
And he's 52, I believe.
And he ends up winning more.
He wins everywhere. An exact quote of last year after they won another title was, "I'm going to run out of fingers because I can't hold all these titles." So
good for him.
The thing is his track record is the same everywhere. He comes in, makes every player work harder than they ever have. They say all the crazy things. Then they win the title in the second year. The third year, he's run out of the organization, either at the middle of the season like he was this year or at the end of last year. And if you're Man United, you do it in a heartbeat because you guys are terrible right now. Your play is awful.
They've still got Wayne Rooney.
Yes, they still have Wayne Rooney, who until recently was in a terrible bit of form. But that speaks to a larger issue. Pep Guardiola is coming to Manchester City, which everyone was the worst kept secret. Pep is considered the best manager. Mourinho is considered the second best manager. He could have taken the Man United job and proven to everybody that, yes, I am the best manager and I'll take one of the biggest clubs and the biggest club in England and win them a title. So you take something that's so difficult and you go, but it's going to be interesting for the next 3 years because Pep Guardiola just signed a 3-year contract. He's considered the best one. All rumors are that Mourinho is going to go to Man United, two of the biggest clubs in the world. It's going to be interesting to see how the Premier League ships out. For Zach Francis, Ellen Burr, next week we'll have Tim Ferguson back in studio if everything goes according to plan. He's out in New Hampshire right now. Thanks for listening. If you haven't clicked on our subscribe page, please do. Follow us on Twitter. And thanks for listening to Orange Pulp.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yes!
She got it!
This is Orange Pulp. It's 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 Orange Pulp.